Grabbing the factory radio, there's a bunch of pieces we need to get off of here, specifically these air vents and this switch in the middle. There's a couple screws that need to be removed. We have to get these little air vent covers off. This top trim. When removing the air vent, there's 8 clips that hold it in that you just have to get in there and kind of pry apart. The best thing to do is when you're holding it here, always apply pressure. As you get one clip, it moves just a little bit more each time until it totally unsnaps. With those out, we can reapply them into our kit. With all the pieces back in, make sure your button works the way it's supposed to. Looking at this kit, now that this is mounted, there's one problem that is just like glaringly obvious. How does this mount into the car? Because it's one thing that this is rigid and into the kit, and it's like super strong. There's no question about that. But this literally just snaps into the car with these 4 clips right here. 2 here, 2 here, that's it. That's all that is holding this into the car. And granted, the air vents go in, so there's a little bit there, but there's no screws on this whatsoever. The factory had those 4 screws. That's gonna be a problem, because this, there again, is holding that screen out and there's weight there. So I removed the 2 brackets from the side of the radio. Initially, I just took one off and screwed it to the side to see if it would work. And it will, kind of. If you notice the 2 brackets, this was the one I took off first, and these are not round anymore. They're egg shaped. These 2 are perfectly round. What I had to do was drill another set of holes next to them and open the hole up so I could move these brackets backwards another 1/4 of an inch so that this would pull in nice and tight with the dash. The other nice thing too is the screws that come with the Pioneer radio are long enough to go through both plastic and the brackets. I might have to do some loosening, tightening, twisting, turning once I get it in there. At least now I know that I will be able to do it. I'm gonna drill these brackets and head into the car and we'll see how it fits. The 4 holes are located here, 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 and here. Top are clips. It retains this top clip here, this top clip here, and these 2 bottom clips, not the middle clips. Right now I do not have the clips on. I just want to line it up. With these pieces here that hold the radio, and that does move them out an extra 1/16 of an inch on either side. Holes are not perfectly centered anymore, but it's a metal bracket and it will give a little bit. Screw it back in. Start with the outside 2. Now we have a nice solidly mounted kit. We're not gonna have to worry about this thing bouncing as it goes down the road. Now we can mount our big heavy screen out to the front. The way this is mounted, we can get our screen mounted to this. In certain applications, the screen actually goes on last because you have to snap a bunch of stuff over the front of it. This one isn't that way. Let's go back over the bench and we'll get it mounted in place. Since we removed the factory brackets, the Sirius module is just kind of hanging out. We don't want it to flop around or get damaged. Take some blue tape, tape it back together. In the bag with the screws, you'll find more screws that are in their own little envelope. There's 3 different types of screws in there, and they're all different shapes and sizes. There's a long silver one, a shorter black one, and then a really tiny micro small one. There's 4 of these, even though you only need 2. They're made to go into the side of the screen's little plastic piece that goes over it. The short black ones are made to go into this, and then the long silver ones are made to go through this. We are going to be using the center location. When screwing this together, of course, use a regular screwdriver. Don't try to put this in with a cordless drill. Pull the back of the screen off. The clip plugs with the locking part towards the outside, and then there's these little grooves here to mount it into. He would like it low so that the air vents are not blocked. That's going to take it all the way down to its lowest setting. The screws, they go through the whole channel and then screw in to the back of that bracket. This area back here, you can kind of see the blue tip of the screw. Line this up with the channels. There's one on either side. If you get it wrong, you'll know because it'll go in cockeyed, but if you get it right, it'll sit nice and flush. This screw is a pain to get in. Once you get it in though, it will lock this top piece in place. Looking at the side profile, it will adjust up or down. we get into the car, we can figure out what angle works best for viewing. It does cover that pocket. We would much rather have access to these top air vents than this silly pocket. The last step for this kit is snapping these white clips into place. That's going to lock it into the dash. Plug in your hazard switch. Because we retained factory brackets, this will snap back into place just like the factory had it. And this is the look he was going for. It hides a lot of that area there. It's out of the way now, you can't see it. Attaching the USB-C to this is, well, kind of a pain. We don't want it to break once it gets in the dash. You saw how tight it is in there. What we've done is we've taken 2 pieces of 1/4" ABS. One of them we've dug a groove into on the table saw that is the same width as the USB-C cable. It fits in just like this. The other side is just a regular flat piece of plastic. Both corners are rounded. And we've made them longer because we just keep cutting them off as we need them. What we do is cut off a piece of this, the length of our USB-C. This lines up here like so, and we have it hang over into the radio about 1 inch. Next step is to apply some Tessa red tape to it. This is scrapbooking tape. It's really thin and super sticky. Line the 2 pieces up, plug the USB-C into the radio, line up your harness, and then stick this into place. Drill 2 holes, plug the USB-C back in, thread a skinny zip tie through the 2 holes you just drilled, pull it nice and tight, grab your flush cutters, and cut it off. What we have now is a mount to hold that USB-C in place. So this gets tucked in the dash. We don't have to worry about this coming off or bending or getting in the way. With that being our final step with dealing with the radio, let's take a look at the harness now. For this install, we're going to be using a Maestro RR. You do have to flash it toward the radio and the vehicle. We have it plugged into our computer. Once on the computer, download the WebLink desktop updater. Select flash by vehicle. The first question is going to be your year and make. We're working on a Toyota 4Runner without JBL. It'll give you a image of the steering wheel. Make sure that's the one that's in your car. Come down to the make of radio you have. It's going to ask you to input the model number of your radio and the serial number, so make sure you have that handy. We're working on a DMH WT7600. Type in your serial number. It'll show you the version of the software that's going to be downloaded to your device, parts that are going to be needed. In this case, we need the TO2 harness. Then it also points out some accessories. This has a factory GPS antenna in it. If we would like to retain that so we don't have to run our Pioneer antenna, we can pick up an STO2. Inside of it has both a Pioneer, Alpine, and Kenwood antenna along with the Sirius XM retention cable. We also have the USB 2 hub. If we had a radio that had a standard USB, then depending on which year it has, there's also the UT02 USB retention cable. We're not going to be integrating in the K40 radar. Select how you want to configure your system. Vehicle information, yes. Advanced camera features, if available. Gauges for sure, and steering wheel controls. If it was a JBL system, it would ask you if you wanted to retain the factory JBL amplifiers. In this case, we're doing a full big stereo. We wouldn't want it, so we would unselect it. Even though it had it, we're not going to be using it, so make sure you pay attention to how you set that up. Select continue when done. This brings us to our steering wheel control configuration. There's a bunch of steering wheel controls on this radio. It has the defaults that you can see here. One that I've found most people do not like is volume down as mute. Most people want to go volume down, but if you have it mute, it just kind of screws things up. I've had enough people ask me, I just turn it off now. Go over and make sure everything else. As you're going over preset, it will light up white over here. So you can see seek down showing up, source mode button is showing up, gauges are showing up here. When you're set, select continue. And this page is just giving you an overview of everything you've selected. It shows you all your steering wheel control configurations, the harness, the options. Select flash when ready. Now you just sit back, wait for it to do its thing. When it finishes programming the unit, you'll get this page here. This will give you access to install guide. You can also print off a wallet card to show what all those buttons on the steering wheel do. You have to scroll through to find your vehicle. It does list all of them. Fortunately for us, 4Runner starting with the number 4 is going to be pretty see up top, we don't have JBL, so we'll scroll on. Without JBL, gives you a tech support line if you need to call them. You can also email them if you'd like. Installation steps, things you need to know. And then down here, it gives you the wire diagram. It shows that you need to plug in the OBD2 port, and then harnesses not needed are located here on the bottom. You will have 4 harnesses clipped in the main data harness, 3 from the TO2 harness. There is no audio coming out of this, so you will not need that cable. This page is nice because when you get done wiring up this unit, there should only be 4 things plugged into this unit. If there's more than 4, you did something wrong. Go back and figure out which harnesses you don't need. I've seen a lot of people plug in here where it shows this steering wheel control. It doesn't need that. It's done over the data. Pay attention to that. So at this point, I like to just close the laptop. This will stay in place. I have an idea of what I need to do. I can unplug the unit from here. Opening the RR, we need this piece here. If we dig into the bag that has the main power harness in it, we need this little guy here that has 2 4-pin connectors on either end with a blue, white, black, and red wire. The USB is also in this bag if you didn't have one already. Everything else in here is not needed for this install. The TO2 harness, OBD2 adapter. They tape these up for you. If you want to leave them this way, go right ahead. We typically will pull them apart and change them. Camera retention harness is also here. That is going to plug into this. Make it removable because not every car has a factory camera, so you may not need this. Here are your 3 harnesses that are going to plug into this. This is your 4th. That's all you need. On this end, you see these has the RCAs. This is for the JBL system. We're not going to be using that. In the harness over here, you find your purple and your greens and every other wire color. This is to retain the factory aux jack in the dash. We're going to be removing that all together to put in our new plate for our micro USB-C, so we're not going to need this. I'm going to remove all this tape, pretty up this harness. With both sides of my harness now all prettied up, let me explain what I have going on here. This is the Pioneer harness. We're not going to be using deck power. We're going to be using the amplifier power. So we've capped all those off with little tiny butt connectors, taped them off all by themselves, and put a piece of shrink wrap over it to hold those in. That leaves us with a rainbow of wire colors. Pink is VSS or vehicle speed sense. Blue-white is amplifier turn on. Light green is emergency brake. Orange-white is illumination. Purple-white is reverse trigger. Red is accessory. Yellow is constant 12 volt, and black is ground. Those are going to match up to the colors here on our iData harness. So you can see we've made kind of a funky T-shape. We have our 4 connectors that we keep talking about located here, 3 on this side, 1 on that side. On this end, we've got the speaker, main power plug, and then our 2 accessory harnesses, 1 for camera, 1 for data, backup camera, RCA, data connection for the radio. This side here, we have all our speaker wires plus a remote turn on. This is so when the speed wire we're going to be using comes into the dash, we can easily connect them all up here. That remote turn on wire simply just runs through the harness and comes over on this side where we find its end here, as well as a blue-white that is going to trigger this brain. But all these wire colors match up to all these wire colors. Next step is to solder these 2 together and we will have a full and complete harness. Harness is all set and ready to go. We've made our connections here. What I like to do at points like this where there's shrink wrap over them is I'll use the exterior Tessa tape coming to it on both sides, and then where the shrink wrap is, that's a separate piece of tape, and I use interior Tessa tape to fleece stuff. The reason why I do that is that this peels off super easy, and if we ever need to add any more wiring into there, I don't have to ruin all this other tape to do that. We've also added in the BAA44 antenna adapter, and that needs a power. We use the accessory power coming out of the radio, not the remote turn on to turn this on. The remote turn on is a small amperage output just to turn on amplifiers. This needs more amperage than that is going to put out. The accessory is perfect for that. The only other piece that we can add into this now, if we'd like, is the RCA. On the radio, it has a bunch of cables coming off of it, as you can see here. Yellow is video, brown is backup camera, and then the white and red pairs are going to be audio, and they have these little tags or flags on them. I like to zip tie them into their groups. There's also this mute wire that we will not need for this installation. Cap it off. The only wire on this side that we're gonna need is the brown one for the camera. This radio you can add a front camera to as an option if you wanted. Plug our yellow backup camera trigger into our brown, and that will keep all our harnesses together until we're ready to put them into the vehicle. I'm gonna go set this with the radio.